to go ahead and introduce Avery Baldwin. And well, first off, let me introduce myself because a lot of you all are new to our program, which we're really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday morning with us. I'm Grace Moyd. I'm the Executive Director of Thrive Global Project. We provide educational resources to students to thrive in the classroom. So we're so excited you all are here. This is our Ready to Thrive program, where we are able to offer workshops and scholarships to students heading into their freshman year and students like you who are in their freshman year, which we're so excited to have you all here. And then you'll also see working away is Catherine McLeod. She is our amazing Director of Development and Marketing. So if you need anything, chat us during the workshop. We have a full morning packed out with lots of amazing workshop topics, as well as like fun things for you all to do. And Avery's going to be leading that. He is with us from Wells Fargo, so we're really excited to have him here. I'll go ahead and jump in and introduce Avery. Avery Baldwin, he's a finance analyst at Wells Fargo. He's originally from Shenandoah, Iowa. Avery graduated from the Bachelor's of Science degree in Finance from Iowa State University in spring 2021 and moved to Charlotte, North Carolina shortly after. He's currently a part of the regulatory reporting organization at Wells Fargo. And in January, he's really excited to make the move to the business management office. Outside of him working, he likes to read, watch movies, exercise, play golf. Financial literacy is a major talking point for him and for his household growing up. And so he really is excited to share his passion with all of you. And we're really excited to have him here and join us. So I'm going to go ahead and let Avery start. And then again, for any of those jumping on, pre-survey link, get those completed, and then make sure you rename yourself so we can easily get you checked off. And from here, I'll let Avery take it.
Cool. Thank you, Grace. I'm excited to be with all of you. I'll start with just a brief disclaimer. I'm not an expert in financial literacy. It was a huge talking point for me growing up, but I'm by no means an expert. I'm here to answer any questions I can and kind of learn this stuff along with you guys. My goal is to engage all of you, so I encourage you to please interrupt me, ask a question, a concern, anything that you're just curious about, please feel free to jump in. I want this to be as collaborative as possible, and for a Saturday morning, let's try to make this exciting. Does everybody have their profile and budget worksheet handy with their particular occupation? Grace, I think they should have those, right? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to start here at the top. Can anybody tell me what a gross yearly salary is? Go ahead, Madison.
Is it like the amount you make per year before like taxes and everything like that?
Exactly, you nailed it. It's the amount you make before taxes, before deductions. And then, if we look right below that, we have our gross monthly salary. So it's that salary divided by 12. And then the most important number is that monthly take-home pay. So that take-home pay, or we call that net pay, is the amount that you take home after your taxes, after your deductions, right? When you get your first job, hopefully your employer offers you the opportunity to contribute to a 401k, maybe you have insurance, things like that. So those might come out pre-tax, and those will impact how much you take home. In that right column, we see our marital status. This is going to be different for each of you guys. I think each of you should have a different occupation with a different particular lifestyle. So you might have marital status, how many children you have, what education is required for that job. If you have a student loan, how much you have to pay back. Student loans are always fun. And then your retirement contribution. We are going to go through 13 different slides here in just a second when I present my screen. And each of them is going to take us through a quick scenario. And this sheet is going to act like a check register. So as we go through, the first one will be on clothing, and you're going to make a decision on what clothing item you want to buy for each member of your family It's going to give you different options like thrift store, department store, etc. And then just make sure that you keep the name of the station there in the far left column, what option you chose there in the middle. It's okay to use more than one line, by the way. And then write down the cost of that option so that we can keep a running tally of how much money you have at the very end. And we'll have a few chance cards throughout where we'll have unexpected expenses that pop up. We'll talk more about those later on, but make sure that you keep track of those as well. And then at the very end, we'll kind of send you guys out into breakout rooms to discuss how much money did you end up, were you surprised by how much things cost, or how much you really had to make a determining factor between, do I want to spend money on this, or do I want to save a little bit just in case this pops up, right? And how did you react to those unexpected expenses? Were you able to cover them? And how did that impact your budget? So let me share my screen and we'll go ahead and get started here. And bear with me for just a second because I'm operating on a single screen here. Okay. Everybody see this okay? Perfect. So here's that profile and budget worksheet that I was talking about. Again, each of these should be different for all of you. Here we have those 4 different columns, right? So keep track of your station, what option you chose, how much that option cost, and then what your remaining balance is, and just keep a running tally just like you would in a checkbook. And so we'll start here with the communication station. So here we're going to select a mobile phone, cable, and internet package. You can choose to pick a bundle that appears on the right side, but we have to choose a mobile phone plan on the left. So you can choose to bundle that cable and internet in the middle by getting a bundle, but you also have to include a mobile phone plan there on the left. And it would be super helpful if somebody just raises their hand or gives me a head nod when folks have made their decisions, because I can only see a couple of you at the same time.
And feel free to throw it in the chat, and I can also let Avery know.
Yeah. And you guys don't feel like you have to raise your hand or anything. Just yell at me.
Yeah.
We're totally fine. Just take yourself off mute.
So we're only doing the mobile phone plan right now?
You have to choose a mobile phone plan there in the left-hand column, right? You have 3 different options. And then you have to choose a cable plan, an internet plan, or you can choose to bundle the cable and internet by getting a bundle that appears there on the right. Does that make sense to everybody?
Avery, we did get a question. I got a question to me.
Yeah.
Some question or a question on specifically how to choose the profession. Could you go back and share with that a little bit as well? And I can let you know if there's any other ones that come.
How to choose the profession?
What profession do I choose is the question I got.
Oh, do they have an option to choose any of the 50?
I believe so.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought that they were sent just one of them.
Yes,
you guys can choose whatever you want. Choose, maybe if you have a major that aligns with one of these jobs, choose that one. Choose the highest paid one or the lowest paid one just for fun. Whatever you want to do is fine. How is everybody feeling? Are we okay to move on to the next one? Cool. If we need to go back, just holler. All right. How about clothing? So pick your choice of clothing from the options below. Remember that all of the prices shown are for an adult and per child. please make sure to make a choice for each member of your family. So remember, on that sheet, whichever one you chose, it's going to have an amount. You might have several children, so make sure that you get an item of clothing for each of those children. Everybody cool? Perfect. Okay, and just like one of those chance cards that I mentioned, so there's a hailstorm in your area and your window breaks. Now you have to pay $100 to have it fixed. So make sure to deduct $100 on that register. You guys are getting off kind of scot-free. $100 to fix a window is pretty cheap. So I would take that. Housing. Okay, this is probably the biggest one. Here we're going to pick a housing option that meets your family's needs. So we have suburban, downtown, and rural. Remember that if you choose to live in a suburban area, you can choose public transportation, but you cannot choose walking or biking. If you live downtown, you can choose public transportation or walking or biking as your transportation. And then if you choose to live in a rural area, you have to have a car, right? Commuting to work. Did anybody pick an occupation that doesn't have kids? Or do they get a sheet that they don't have kids? I didn't
I
get a
did.
chance to look through all of them. Okay,
I took accountant. Same.
perfect. So you can see you guys have definitely some lower cost options. I like that these include total housing expense too, versus just the rent price. I remember when I was looking for my apartment in Charlotte, I was shocked by all of the fees that came with my apartment, because previously I'd just been living in like university housing or some cheap apartment in Ames. And so in bigger cities, they have like trash removal fees. So I have to pay $35 a month for that. Renter's insurance for the first time. So I think it's kind of cool that they actually included those on this sheet, just to give you an idea that it can end up being a lot more than just the rent price that you see on the lease. And it's good to keep that in mind. Is everybody okay to move on to the next one? Perfect. Furniture. So very simple here. We'll pick one of the options for the furniture below. Whichever one you guys think best suits your needs and your budget. Is anybody getting kind of scared by how little money they have left yet?
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah, after you take out that housing cost, it starts to get very real. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next one. If I ever need to go back, just go ahead and let me know. Okay, bank. So we're going to start that savings process. Pick at least one of the savings accounts below and deposit a minimum of $10. Consider the college savings if you have children. That's a great idea. And again, emphasis on minimum of $10. If you want to do more, do more. If you have it in the budget, go ahead and throw it in that savings account. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. Another chance card here. You've locked yourself out of your house. I've done this before in my apartment, and now you have to pay the locksmith $75 to unlock your door. So again, deduct $75 from that register and continue keeping that balance. Eating out. Okay, this is one that this could be a serious pitfall. This one will take a hit to your budget. Pick at least one of the options below. You may also pick as many add-ons as you would like. So you're choosing how many times per month are you going to eat out? And be honest. I know. I always tell people it's like, no, I only go out once or twice a month, but in reality, it's like once a week. So I'm going to give you guys just a second on this one because you might have to do some math here. Keep in mind that it's the amount per person. So if you have children, make sure to take that value times the number of children you have. Yes, Helen. Helen, did you have a question?
And Helen, feel free to unmute yourself. It should let you if you want to ask your question, or feel free to chat it.
Absolutely. Either or is fine. Don't feel like you have to raise your hand. Just take yourself off mute and let me know.
Helen has said she can't unmute herself. So maybe just throw your question in the chat if you're having trouble with unmuting, or let me see if I can unmute.
Thank you. My question was, so does that mean like if if I had chosen fast food, $48, that means that like if I have children, I have to add those on, and does that also count for the add-ons?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So make sure you're including your children and yourself. So if there's 3 people in your household and you want to choose fast food 4 times per month, 24 times 3, and add that to your budget. Everybody okay on the eating out slide? Hearing silence, so I'll go ahead and move on. Childcare, another huge expense. So if you have children that are under the age of 14, choose an option for childcare with the choices given below. Prices vary by option. So as you can see, the type of childcare that you choose matters, and it gets more expensive per child. So make sure to include, if you have more than one child, take it times that value. Okay, I'm going to move on from childcare here. Back to entertainment. So one that's a little bit more fun here. Pick as many entertainment options as you would like. Remember that all of the costs are per person in your family. So be honest, if you have more than one person in your household, make sure to include that. I hope no one's gone negative yet. Okay, so let's move on from entertainment here. Back to insurance, another fun one. Pick one of the insurance plans below. Obviously, that's going to get more expensive the more people you have in your household. Hopefully all of you guys have employer sponsored insurance someday. That's always nice when they pay for at least a portion of it. I had to learn how to use my insurance for the first time this week, so that was fun. Okay, everybody good on insurance? Okay, we're going to touch on needs and wants a little bit more later on, but can anybody give an example of what a need or a want is? It's a free $100 if you do. Nobody needs $100 right now?
Hey, Grace, people are saying they aren't able to unmute themselves. Is there a setting that we can change?
Yes, I There we go. Let me see if that, so you know, Avery, we have people coming in the chat, and I know you are saying in the chat that now you all should be able to unmute yourself. Want is just shoes, a need is like food, and a want is a trip to the movies.
Perfect.
A want is a designer bag, a need is food, need water, want ice cream, needs all necessities, wants are preferences, want is a designer bag, need clothes, food, need is a necessity, want is a desire. Toilet paper is definitely a need is shelter, want is a pet. So we have a lot coming in. Y'all feel free to unmute yourself. You should be able to now.
Okay, perfect. Because I should have said this from the jump, but I can't view the chat due to some restrictions on my computer, but feel free to unmute yourself or just throw it in the chat and Grace will let me know.
Somebody's
Cool,
saying
so
ice cream is a want. That's high, but to be higher, that's a need.
might be for me too. Cool. It looks like most everybody got $100. Transportation, I think this is the last big ticket item. We're going to make a transportation selection. You can pick a new or a used vehicle if you've decided to live downtown. So go back to what you selected on that housing slide. You can use public transportation or just walk, use a bike if it fits your family needs and budget. So by this point, you might have to be careful about how much money you have left over and what you would like to save at the end of the month, but try to make a selection here based on what you have left in your budget and what your family's needs are. You've got new cars there on the left, used cars on the right. It does include your insurance and gas and maintenance. Yes, Madison.
I guess my question is, how do you are we just assuming that it'll fit your family? Because apparently I have a lot of kids.
Okay, how many
So-
kids do you have?
I got 3 of them, but I'm also married, so that's 5 people. So I need a car that'll fit 5 people. So how do you
Okay.
know which one will fit that? Or would I just have to get 2 cars?
That's a good question. I would say if you have more than 4 people, you probably want to stick to the minivan options, because I think the sedans, those are going to be 4 seats. Hybrids are going to be 4 seats. Luxury cars, 4 seats, if not 2 seats. So probably the 2 minivans, and you can choose between the new and the used. I know that doesn't give you a lot of options, but for the sake of the workshop, maybe stick to the minivans so that you know it'll fit your family. Okay, did everybody get a chance to write down that total auto expense for whatever option they chose? Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, groceries. So similar theme as our other selections. The more people you have in your house, the more expensive it gets. Choose, do you want to pick a regular grocery plan or an organic grocery plan? And then make that fit how many people you have in your particular household. Anybody who has more than 4 people in their house going with the organic grocery plan? Anybody? $1,000 on food, that's a lot of money. Okay. Charitable contributions. This one's very similar to that savings slide. You must donate a minimum of $10 to one or more of the charities listed below and or select a community service. So if you select that community service option, it's no money, but you have 5 hours or more of your time commitment. So I think that's the only way you can get, you can avoid that $10 minimum.
Avery, just so you know, we have some people in the chat saying, oh no, I'm about to be negative. And I think Serena is saying, I think you're saying it's healthier to eat out. Unmute yourself. Y'all feel free to make the share your feedback with Avery.
I would say it's healthier to get the organic food. but it
That's
does.
true. It certainly does cost money to eat well. It's just one of those unavoidable expenses, I suppose.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So let's say you want to donate like to multiple and you want to do community service, you would just add the numbers up to the multiple charities.
Exactly. Choose as many as you want. $10 for each. And then if you
All
want
right.
to throw that community service on there too, that's perfect. Give you guys just another second here, and then we'll move on. Okay, one more chance card. It happens to be all of your birthdays and you get a gift. So add another $100 to your account. Hopefully that helps those of you who are nearing negative territory. And personal care. So you have a couple different plans there, low, high, and moderate. And then you have add-ons at the bottom there, at the bottom right corner, if you so choose. Keep in mind that there's the cost for individuals and cost for families. If you have children, make sure you're choosing the cost for families there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on here. And that was our last station actually. So I think that should make 13 in total. Go ahead and review your budget. We're gonna break out into those breakout rooms here in a second for you guys to talk in smaller groups about what you ended up with. Did anybody actually go to zero or end up in that negative territory? Hopefully not. Was anybody really surprised by how little they had left?
Yes. And I also had a question because I don't think I like the first one that you guys did, because my first one was the window fix. Was that the first? Was that the first one you guys did?
Yep, that was the first chance card. It was the window to the locksmith and then your birthday.
But was that like the first bill that we had, or was there another bill? I think I'm missing a bill.
Oh, okay. There was one slide ahead of that one. It was the communication one.
Okay.
So it was right here. You had to pick one of the cell phone plans in the left-hand column, prepaid, basic, or unlimited. And then you can choose a cable plan, an internet plan, or bundle cable and internet by choosing one of the bundle packages on the right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Would you mind going to the second one, the very second one?
Yeah. The clothing one.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Was anybody else missing any of them? If I went too fast, please let me know. Happy to go back. Otherwise, in just a second, I think we're going to break you out into breakout rooms for you guys to discuss as smaller groups. You know, what you learned, were you surprised? And then maybe, hopefully, some of you guys chose different occupations so you can look around and see, you know, what were those take homes and how did that impact your bottom line at the end of the month? and maybe it impact your decision making too, right?
Excuse
If you
me.
knew you made more money.
Sorry, somebody asked if you
Yeah.
could go back to the eating out portion.
Yeah. It's probably going to take me back to the beginning. Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Is anybody else missing any of the stations or the chance cards? Grace, anything in the chat that I'm overlooking?
We just had someone type personal care.
Personal care. Okay. I think that was the last
And
one.
then also last internet plan.
Okay. Perfect. So we'll pause here on the personal care, and then I'll go back to that communication slide at the beginning for the internet plan. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move back to that communication slide. And there's those two internet plans, just two options. Cool. Any last second questions or concerns before we start the breakout rooms here? Grace, anything in the chat? Nope.
Nope, nothing's come through.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and put them into breakout rooms and let them discuss as smaller groups?
Absolutely. So I'm going to break you out into groups of 4 and 5. Oh wait, we just had someone jump back in. 4 and 5. We're going to leave y'all in there for like 5 or 6 minutes. You do have to accept the breakout room, so please make sure you accept it, which we will appreciate that. So we're going to have about let's see, about 9 breakout rooms. So I'm going to go ahead and then make sure you discuss. And when we come back, we're going to ask some people to share. So if you want to talk about who might want to share or what, who wants to be the spokesperson, we'll have about 9 breakout rooms. So we'll see y'all soon.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope y'all got to share lots. Avery, you ended up in a breakout room.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
you're gonna
had
be the
fun.
sharer.
Well, we'll see how much engagement we get. I told my group that I'll probably end up calling on one of them if we don't get enough people to speak up.
Well, I have the breakout room list, so we can easily
Okay. Okay.
ask of certain breakout rooms of sharing. And I think, let me make sure we have everyone back. Everyone should be back, so we're good. You can take it, Avery, or I can help call if people want to share, or I can talk. I have the breakout of the different breakout rooms, so whatever you think.
Okay. We'll start by giving people a chance. I hate calling on people because I would hate for someone to do that to me.
Agreed.
But does anybody want to chime in? Maybe tell us an occupation that they chose, how many kids they had, and if they were surprised by how much money they had left at the end of the month?
I can go. So
Okay.
I chose accountant, and I chose that one because that's what my brother's in school for right now. So I was like, let me see how my brother's gonna be when he gets out. So when I did it, I was honestly astonished because I didn't have any money. But then when I got in my breakout room and I found out that my other peers had a lot of money left over, it just made me realize that I'm not good with money and I'm not good with saving, because they had $800 left over and I had -20. But it was really bad. But I think if I could go back, I would do transportation and I just would walk because I chose an apartment that was downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So then that would leave me with $480. So I would still be up if I took away my transportation.
Okay. Thank you, Madison. That's awesome. Winifred, go ahead.
Oh, I had a question for Madison because I'm also an accountant, and I just wanted to know what was her expenses because at the end of the day, I ended out with $762 left to my name. So I was confused, like, what did you spend, girl?
Okay, so I was realistic with like what I do now. So the furniture, I did one set, I did the discount new furniture. Savings, I put $100. The eating out, I did $240 because I know I eat out all the time now that I'm in college. For the insurance, I did the bundle package. Transportation, I did the used 4-door. Groceries, I did the regular plan, and then for like charity, I did $30. The phone, I did the bundle plan, and then clothing, I did the department store. So, yeah.
Nice.
I was also an accountant, but I had left $697 left because, like, for every plan that we did, I just chose the cheapest one so that if I have enough money saved over, I can always go back and choose like a more expensive one based on how much I had left over, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think that's a great perspective. We got a couple people with their hands raised. Zoria, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so basically I chose the firefighter, not only for the career itself, but looking at salary as $50,000 a year. And I ended up with like a little bit over under $500. So I think that was pretty good. But I think if you look at it, it's more for, that would be a great salary if you were solo on your own as an individual. But I had like 2 kids and a wife. So it took a lot more money out. Then, you could have saved the money or maybe invested into a stock or something and tried to grow the money. But if you were on your own, but I guess you could do it with $500, but it's always good to have a little extra to lean off of, so that you're not like just working and not having any fun with your money.
Right. And that's a great talking point too, is the impact that kids make on your budget. Good and bad, of course, but it is a very real thing and something to consider, because that does force you to choose other options that you wouldn't have had to choose if you were a single person. So good thing to keep in mind there. Joy?
Yeah, so I chose a lawyer with 2 kids. And that turned out pretty well. I ended up having like $612 left, which is pretty decent. I mean, I was definitely aiming to live like a certain kind of lifestyle, which is why I chose the lawyer. But I was able to like pretty much get everything I wanted. Like the 3-bedroom house, the luxury car, the like fine dining, family vacation, stuff like that. So I was able to live the life I wanted with like money left over still.
I like that you were honest about the lifestyle that you wanted. That's important. So I love it. Madison, go ahead and chime in.
I guess like one of the things, like I chose a career that was like close to the salary that I would be making. So yeah, but the thing that really got me was the kids. I'm still not over it. I had 3 little kids, right? And the house was expensive because I had to buy a house, like a 3-bedroom house, like no matter what, had to be 3 bedrooms because the kids. But then I was sitting there realizing, like, if I had 3 kids and they all wanted their own room, that's minimum 4 bedrooms. Because then I have to go and I have to get a guest bedroom because, that's what I like hosting. And so it just made me realize that if I want kids, that's a lot of money. Like I knew kids were expensive, but this was just a practice and that expensive. Yeah, I don't know now.
At least you get to practice and see the impact right before it actually happens to you. So good exercise there. Thank you. Tony?
Okay, hi everyone. Okay, so I basically chose the therapist lifestyle, so I would be married, and like that's something close to what I want to do in the first place because of the doctoral program. And I ended up having $1,205 left over because I got to live the lifestyle basically of what I wanted in a way. And budgeting was never really, I'm not gonna like say it's like it's not a hard thing, but it's like knowing what is necessary and what isn't, and that you can do for yourself instead of buying it, then it works out in a way. So yeah, I think I did pretty good.
Good. Yeah, that's a solid take home at the end of the month. So awesome. Did anybody else have to go back and make a change because they saw they were getting close to the negative, or maybe not being able to save as much at the end of the month as they thought?
I had to go back and change my transportation. Instead of having a car, I had to change to public because I was indeed about to go to the negatives. So that was something I had to switch out.
Thank you, Lenise. Anybody else? Grace, how are we doing on time?
So we have about 20 minutes left. So I don't know if we want to take Q&A and then we can jump into credit 101. So
Yeah.
we can pull that if that sounds good. And we are going to go a little bit over just so everyone knows, because y'all did such an amazing job on the budgeting portion. So just to keep y'all posted, we'll be going over a little bit because we got to get y'all the post survey as well for the scholarship. So yes, that if anyone else wants to share, or if you want to head straight into, if anyone has any Q&A, or if you want to head straight into crediting, I'll let you do it, Avery.
Okay, so let's jump back in with what credit is. We can break credit down into 2 different areas, that credit score and credit report. Credit score is going to provide lenders with a snapshot of your credit report and your credit history at a particular point in time. There are 2 different types, FICO and Vantage. About 90% of lenders use FICO scores, so that's the one that we're going to focus on here. And then this is kind of an area that I got interested in, was what actually goes into that score. So the top 35% comes from your payment history. Are you paying off your credit card bill each month? How long does it take you? Another 30% comes from outstanding debt. So each credit card has a credit limit. How close are you to approaching that credit limit? How much debt do you have that still needs to be paid off? 15% comes from credit history length. So this could be a key for you guys to start young, right? You're probably years away from buying a house, maybe even buying a car, but starting early allows you to lengthen that credit history, which plays into your favor. Having a longer credit history is a good thing. 10% comes from new credit pursuits. So I don't know if you guys are like me, but I get, in the mail, I'll get like packages from Discover or Amex or something like that promoting credit cards. If you call them and ask to get a credit card and you do that for too many of them, that's going to play against you. You don't want to see that there's too many credit pursuits on your report. That's going to impact your credit score in a negative way. Finally, it's your credit mix. Banks don't want to see that you have 10 credit cards, 5 travel cards, right? They would rather see a nice, clean credit mix of maybe an auto loan, a home mortgage loan, you got a credit card or 2, things like that, versus all in one particular area. Next, we have that credit report. This is a summary of your credit history. There are three big credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, that's probably the one that you're most familiar with, and TransUnion. Lenders can request this credit report to decide whether or not they're going to lend you money when you make an application for a loan. And you can actually view this credit report. They're not sealed. Each of these agencies allow you to request a credit report for free once per year. And I would really encourage you to make sure that you monitor yours. This is something I don't do enough of, because these credit reports are not perfect. I want to emphasize they do have mistakes. And if they do have a mistake on there, you don't want that to play against you because you didn't do your due diligence by looking at your credit report ahead of submitting an application for something, right? You'd hate to be denied a loan because you had a mistake on your credit report that you weren't even aware of. Why is credit important? There's a lot of reasons why credit is important, but I'm going to touch on just 4 quick areas here. Number one, credit cards. This is what most people know. So credit cards just provide a faster, easier, more convenient and secure way to make purchases. And there are tons of different credit cards out there. So if you're somebody who likes to travel, maybe you want to get a credit card that allows you some frequent flyer miles as your rewards. Or if you use your credit card for all of your groceries and your gas and your utilities, right, you're going to rack up a little bit of a higher credit card bill, but now you maybe want a credit card that gives you 2% cash back, something like that. So you can view that as a discount on purchases that you're already making. Homes. Someday, all of us are going to want to buy a house that we can get out of apartments and noisy neighbors and spending all of our money in rent, right? So the better your credit score, the better home mortgage loan you can get someday. You're going to get lower rates, allowing you to pay less interest over time. And ultimately, that's going to save you money in the long term. The same applies for autos, right? A better credit score is going to allow you to get a lower interest auto loan, meaning that you're paying less for that car over time. The last one is jobs. And this one is one that even I don't think of enough. And it's kind of going by the wayside, honestly. There are somewhere between 11 and 13 states that have outlawed this now, but some employers can submit a request to view your credit report, and they can use that in the application process when evaluating you as a candidate. And that's kind of scary, right? You wouldn't want your employer to see that you have a 300 credit score. That's going to make them think that you're irresponsible. Whether that's the case or not, that's just not a good thing. So definitely be conscious of the fact that employers in some states can ask for a credit report and use that in the application process. Then how to get credit. These would kind of be my 3 steps or my 3 recommendations for you guys. Start by opening a checking and a savings account. Most of you probably already have one of these. Make sure you're not making over withdrawals or taking out more money than you actually have in the account. And the reason is a bank might require you to have an account with them prior to getting a credit card. They're going to want to see history on you, that you have, a long pattern of responsible spending and saving, making deposits and withdrawals. Second, if you can, put your apartment lease and utilities in your name to start building that credit history. Right? We saw that this accounts for, I think it was 15% of your credit score. So the earlier you can start doing this, it's very, very important. Obviously, this doesn't apply if you live in university housing because that's all paid through the university. But if you do live off campus, I would try to get that apartment and those utilities in your name if you can. Third, try getting a student credit card. All of the big banks offer them. They're typically going to come with, higher APRs, higher interest rates, and a little bit lower credit limits, but they are going to give you certain rewards, right? Maybe certain stores give you 1% cash back, things like that. And it's just a good way to start building that credit history as early as you can. But keep in mind, try to pay that off in full to avoid those interest rates. And then I just kind of compiled a couple credit card tips for you guys. Some of these get kind of redundant, but the theme is try to avoid those interest rate charges, because the secret is banks love when you don't pay off your credit card, because then they get to charge you obscene fees for the use of that credit. And then you get nailed with a lot of hefty expenses at the end of the month. So pay your credit card bill on time, pay it in full if possible to avoid the interest. Read your credit card holder agreement, all of it. This agreement is going to spell out those fees and finance charges. So make sure you understand the terms and ask if you have questions. Learn about the facts of finance charges. If you don't pay that a full amount within the grace period, you're going to be charged interest, and these interest rates are very, very high, especially for folks in our age range. Next, know your credit limit. We know that the amount of debt outstanding accounts for 30% of that credit score. So stay well below that credit limit, monitor how much you have available. Most banks offer you the option to mobile bank now, where you can just quickly click on a credit card and see what your credit limit is, how much debt you have outstanding. So that's a good way to just monitor it as you make your purchases. We saw how important a budget can be in our earlier exercise. So create that budget and stick to it. This is going to help you keep control of your finances, resist those urges to spend. And the big theme here is don't use your credit card to buy things you can't afford. If you don't already have the money, don't use the credit card. Reduce your debt, keep that credit card balance low, just like we saw with the credit limit. Don't take on more debt than you can handle. Limit cash advances. These advances are going to incur higher fees and finance charges. It's just like taking money out of an ATM that's out of your network. If you bank with one bank and then you try to get an ATM out of another bank's ATM, they're going to charge you a fee to get that money, even though it's already your money. It's kind of the same thing here. So try to avoid those cash advances, and then review the credit report, because they're not perfect and they might have a mistake, and we don't want that to play against you someday down the road. Section 2 here, we're going to move on to savings. I'm going to touch briefly here on the importance of saving, and please feel free to chime in if you feel like I missed any, if you want to argue against one of them. The first one here, I have freedom. So if you have savings, now you have the ability to cover those expenses, and probably most importantly, those ones that come up that are unexpected. You have that safety net. Whether we like it or not, money can open doors. It can open opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise had, right? The ability to travel, invest in your hobbies, see family, do things like that. We know that money can't buy time, but it could help you retire earlier, which means that you get prime years of your life back where you don't have to spend it working, and you can spend it, doing your hobbies or things that you actually want to do. The second piece would be security. So savings allow for peace of mind. And finally, this one kind of goes hand in hand with that, is risks and flexibility. So the unexpected won't sink you. If you have savings, you have the ability to make a mistake and not feel like you're going to be done for if things don't go your way. So if we know that saving is important and we recognize that, why don't people save? Does anybody have any ideas for why people don't save?
They don't have the means to sometimes.
Yep, that's a great reason.
Zoria has her hand up. Go ahead, Zoria.
Sorry.
Madison basically just took what I said, and you mentioned it earlier. People just don't have it at the end of the month or week, and they just live check
And
by
they just
check,
end
so
up,
they're not
yep.
able to save. But some people probably have overspending problems, maybe. So they don't know how to balance their finances, and they just want to spend. But yeah, those are a couple reasons.
Right. Those are great. Does anybody else have a reason for why they think people don't save?
Maybe they know they won't have enough money that could be saved.
It goes back to, maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck, right?
We have someone in the chat that said, don't know how to budget.
Yep, that's a great reason too. Those are perfect. I'm going to move on to 3 more that I just came up with. These are ones that I see among some of my friends pretty often, and I kind of wanted to share them with you guys so that you guys don't fall into these pitfalls as you graduate college and get your first job and start making money for the first time. These are things that I don't want you to fall into. So number one thing is mindset. I hear a lot, I'm young, I've got time, I just kind of want to have fun. I would encourage you to consider the opportunity costs, and I'll touch on that a little bit more here in a second. People like to procrastinate, right? It's not so much fun to do it now when you can do it later. And I'm guilty of this all the time. I did this a lot in college. It got me in trouble sometimes. So try to avoid this when it comes to saving if you can. And then think about the power of compound interest, interest that is earned on interest over time. And actually, Catherine had a great idea to show you guys what might happen if you saved that $500 scholarship that you guys earned at a rate of return of 8% over 45 years. So we'll say, for the sake of argument, you are 20 and you're retired at 65. So you just threw this in a retirement account, and it's compounded monthly. You would end up with $18,000. And you really didn't have to do anything other than not spend the money. So kind of cool there just to see the power of compound interest at work. And just like I said, consider the opportunity costs. So I've got 3 scenarios here. The first one, we're starting at age 22. You're just getting out of college. Maybe this is your first job. You're going to retire at 65. You make $60,000 a year, and we're going to save 5% of that. So $250 a month. Over the course of 43 years, you will have saved $129,000 in principal at a rate of return of 10%, which is on the low end of the S&P 500 average. You will end up with $2.1 million. That's a lot of money. But what happens if you just started 8 years later? You said, I'm going to kind of screw around in my 20s. It's whatever. I'm young. You're still going to retire at the same age. You make the same amount of money, save the same amount per month. You'll save $24,000 in principal, but you're going to end up almost $1.2 million behind that person who started just 8 years earlier. And then finally, if we really want to blow our minds, we start at 30, we retire at 65, and we're going to save double the amount of money per month from age 30 to 65, same rate of return, and we're still almost $250,000 behind that person who started at 22 and saved half as much as we did each month. It's the power of compound interest at work. It's the power of being disciplined over a long period of time and making those sacrifices early. It really does pay dividends at the end of the time. So I would encourage you, as you're young, consider the opportunity cost of not starting early enough. Second, I'm going to touch on needs and wants. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I tend to conflate needs and wants. I walk into a store and I'm like, oh, I need this. But in reality, it's just a want. So needs are those basic necessities like we talked about earlier: food, water, shelter, clothing. I think in today's world, we could throw in a cell phone, internet access, things like that. Wants, those are things that make life more fun. A question that I would caution all of you to ask yourselves, if you're making a purchase that you can determine is a want, are you buying it for you or to impress someone else? I fall into this trap pretty often, or I used to at least. I wanted to seem cool or give off a certain impression of myself versus actually buying it because it added value to my life and made me happier. And then a third point that I wanted you guys to think about is what's easier to control, your income or your expenses? And this is kind of a nuanced answer. So you can make an argument for both sides, but I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Income or expenses, which one is easier to control? Anybody want to be brave?
I feel like your income would be easier to control because you never really know what you have to pay for. Like when we were going over the budgeting, when you lost
Yep.
your key, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know that we had to pay that fee. So I think income would be easier because in life you don't really know what you'll have to pay for in the future.
That's true. We have those unexpected expenses that pop up. I'm
Avery,
going to argue.
Avery, we
go
also
ahead,
have in the chat a mixture of
Okay.
expenses and also income. If anyone wants to go off mute and share why they posted one of those or chatted.
Yeah, please do.
So I said expenses. that's the easier thing to control. And I say that just because when you get older, when you're working a wage job, the amount of hours, that's how much you make. And so if you work more hours, obviously you're gonna make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one aspect. But when you start to get into the more corporate world or based on salaries, there's a fixed number that you make at the end of each year. And like, so that will determine how much you make each month. And so with that, you can't really like change that. Like you're gonna make what you're gonna make that year. Whereas like with expensive, you can like change how you shop, change the amount that you shop, the amount that you spend, things like that. Obviously, there are certain things that you can't change, like bills and rent and things like that. But the majority of the things that we buy in terms of like food, clothing, if you tend to buy the more expensive stuff, obviously you're going to have less money than someone who does something that's more cost effective.
Exactly. And I'm going to argue the same point, that your expenses are easier to control than your income. And the reason is, unless you're an entrepreneur, so you work for yourself and you're growing a business, you might have more control over your income. But someone like for me, who works in corporate America, we have pay scales. So we operate, it's the amount of years that you put in service, that's how much you're going to make. It makes it more predictable, but you have less control ultimately over what you're going to make. And so if I want more money at the end of the month, I have to make sure I'm controlling my expenses and keeping those within whatever range I've set. Lastly, I wanted to touch on expectations and outside influences. Has anybody ever thought of how your environment influences your spending habits, whether that's your friends, social media, parents, siblings, even your colleagues at work? Do you guys feel like your environment influences your spending habits?
We're getting lots of yeses on the, or
Yes.
2 yeses on the chat.
Okay, I'm glad that you guys agree with me. I think social media has probably played a little bit bigger part in this as of late, because now we have this access to all of these different influences, and it's a very natural human instinct to want to compare ourselves to others, to find ourselves being envious of others and what they have, right? You log on to social media, you see somebody got a car, or on LinkedIn, somebody got a particular promotion, and we find ourselves to be a little bit jealous. That's natural. But it's important to be conscious of that and not let that influence what your spending habits are and how much you are saving, because ultimately it's about you. In this situation, you have to be selfish and you have to find a way to do what's best for you with your money. With that, I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Hopefully you guys learned something there. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer and stay on as long as you guys want.
Avery, we have a question in the chat. What type of savings account have a rate of return of 10%, or are those more so Roth IRAs? Great question.
Yeah, a savings account, especially right now, is probably going to pay you 0.01%, maybe. Yeah, so those would be retirement accounts, and you could choose to do like a 401k through your employer. I would always recommend those because those are going to come out pre-tax, so that lowers your tax bill. That could be an IRA, which is again pre-tax, or Roth IRA post-tax. And I do like Roth IRAs because you can kind of pick and choose what you want to put into that account. But I just chose that rate of return of 10% because when I did the research for what was the average S&P 500 return, it was in the range of 10 to 12%. So I just went on the low end and threw 10% in there. That might be a little bit high, but just for the sake of argument.
We got another question. How do we begin investing in stocks?
There's lots of different ways to invest in stocks. I am not the biggest proponent of individual stock investing. I know it's a lot of fun, but I found it to be more like gambling for me, which gets dangerous. I would probably recommend index funds or ETFs. I know it's boring, but those are just safer investments over the long term. But if you do want to buy individual stocks, you can do something like Robinhood, Webull. There's tons of different trading platforms out there. Load money onto the account, and then you can buy whatever you want to buy. But it's at your own risk. So please, please, please do your research and be careful.
We've got another question on the chat. Should we start building our own credit now?
Yes, I would highly encourage everybody to try to get a credit card now. Whether it's a student card or just go to your local bank branch, they probably offer a credit card. It's going to come with a lower credit limit. Maybe it's not enough to cover all of your monthly expenses, but just start using it periodically, right? If you have to buy a gift, use that. It's more secure. So if you ever need to make an online purchase, I'd recommend a credit card over just a debit card. But absolutely try to build that now so that when you get out of college, or when you're looking for a house or a car someday, that will play in your favor big time. Any other questions, guys? Life, work, money, whatever you want.
Here's one. Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? That's a great question, Tony.
Yeah, that's a hard question. If you would have asked me that about 3 months ago, I would have told you I would not have gone to business school. I wouldn't have majored in finance. And the reason is I think I found myself to just be pretending. I was trying to be someone who I really wasn't, trying to follow a path that was defined by other people. And then I got into this job and I realized, wow, this is super boring. It's not where my strengths lie. And I really hate it. And it took many, many months, actually just came about in the last couple of weeks, where I finally navigated into a role that is more suited to my strengths. So I would say, if I was in your guys' shoes, I would sit down and be very, very honest with myself about where are my strengths and why am I choosing to do what I'm doing? Is it for me or is it for other people? And I know that's hard, but take the time over the holidays to really think about that.
Any other questions while we have Avery before we start doing some final housekeeping? And if you don't feel comfortable putting it in the main chat or unmuting yourself, you can message Catherine or myself to share those on your behalf or ask those on your behalf.
Yeah, and Grace, you can share my work email with them too if they
Okay.
have a question that they'd like to reach out to me. I know not everybody is always comfortable asking a question in front of 40 people. I wouldn't be. So you guys are more than welcome to email me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Avery. That was so wonderful. I hope that everyone enjoyed it and y'all had such great questions. So if we could all give Avery a round of applause or throw it in the chat, we just are so appreciative of your time. You're getting lots of thank yous, Avery's on the chat. I know you can't see them, so I'll share that. But we can't thank you enough for your time this morning and just pouring into these amazing students. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're going to do some housekeeping. So if you want to stay on, sure, you're more than welcome to. And if anyone wants to directly, or if you don't have chat, sorry, Avery, if something comes up, or feel free to fall off, whatever works for your schedule. But we can't thank you enough for spending time with us this morning.